Excellent. Okay, so everyone's logged in. I think I see some people still trying to connect. Um, yeah, but I can start if that's everybody so far.
Yes, of course.
Excellent. Okay. Um, cool. Well, here we are. Apologies. This is actually I've had a couple of meetings today where I've been online. So, as you know, there's quite a bit of fatigue from doing online stuff. So, but thank you for coming and listening to hear about this virtual book launch. I actually wanted to do a live event way back in February when before everything kind of went crazy. But then COVID happened and everything went indoors. So I had planned to do a launch eventually, but I think it came to a point where I had to put it aside. I was just trying to figure out things with all COVID. Summer came around. I think eventually it was now that then it was that time to actually just go for it. So I went and pushed the publish button after a lot of work, and finally got the book out. So this is, as most of you know, this is it. This is the book I Was Lured into a Tea Shop. And it is a book that includes my photographs from Vancouver's Chinatown from 2013 to 2015. Feel free to ask questions at the end if you want more details about the project, because the project itself is actually still ongoing, and I had taken pictures after 2015 as well. But the 2013 to 2015 period kind of encapsulated a certain part of this long-term project, and I wanted people to get a copy of it. Okay, so I'm going to just make sure we're all good, Bruno? Okay, he's giving me a thumbs up. Cool. Okay. Um, so some of you may not know who I am, and for those of you who, some of you may do actually. I am a Canadian-born Chinese person, and I've lived in Canada all my life. If you've seen the TV interviews about the book, it actually showed up in Fairchild and Omni TV. I don't actually speak Chinese, and if I do, it's really not that good. Usually, it's focused on making sure that I can get the right dim sum, so I can say stuff like hakao and sumai, um, and just a little bit extra, but not much more. Photography was something that came into my life quite a bit later. So I never went to school for photography, nor was I formally trained. I picked up a DSLR one day for vacation, saved up for it, and eventually, it became a lifestyle. Um, I've had a wedding photography career that I'm still doing, but I'm beginning to wind down. I really part of that reason is because I really wanted to focus on the Chinatown work. I also do documentary family photo sessions, and I do other photography work as well. My passion lies in creating prints and books as well, because I really don't think you have a photograph until you have, something tangible in your hand, like a print or a photo. I just had some prints here. Um, Other things about me, I really like sushi. I really enjoyed the country of Japan, and I would love to go back. I'm actually thinking of making a book about that, but that's more for later. I'll keep going. So I never thought the photographs that would ever become this big, let alone create a book that would encompass 3 years of documenting Chinatown. It definitely showed me that the project was much bigger than just photography, and there was and is a lot more to Chinatown than I think most of us are aware of. So, but here's a brief timeline of how the book came to be. First, I was inspired by a fellow photographer to do a long-term photography project, but I wanted to do something that I was passionate and curious about at the same time. So I found this inspiration at Crystal Mall in Burnaby when I was in that area with the sights and sounds of the food stalls in the market area. And I think this stems from a deeper interest of trying to find out more about my own culture, my own people, but it later became an exploration and curiosity of the lives and places of Vancouver's Chinatown itself and the people there. Um, Photographs I kept taking compelled me to find out more and more to do. Basically, it compelled me to do more work in Chinatown and just continue to document it in any way that I could. But anyway, so going back to the project, the second part of it, during the course of 2013, when I was lured into a tea shop, that's when the son of a tea shop owner actually beckoned me into a tea shop from out of nowhere, and I met the tea shop owner as a result of going in out of curiosity, because when does someone just randomly tap on the window and ask you to come into a window? It's weird, but it ended up being really cool because this tea shop owner was not only friendly and we became friends, but they were also a photographer themselves, and they had actually done a portrait project of Chinatown the year prior. Okay, and the third part timeline leading up to this book was that I actually made a book at the end of 2013. So I started the photography project in January 2013. It went all the way till December 2013, and I said, okay, that's it. I'm done. I stopped. This has never gone out to public side. This is my only copy of the 2013 book of Chinatown that I had made. So this was encompassing just 1 year, and I thought this was it. This was going to be the be all end all book. But as I was flipping through the pages of this initial book, I realized that I'd only scraped the surface of something much greater, and so that led me to keep documenting Chinatown onwards from 2014 to 2015, and even onwards from there, from 2016 up until now, when we're experiencing COVID. Excuse me. And yeah, so after doing years and years of photographing Chinatown, I thought, and after presenting draft books and doing a lot of work, I eventually decided that it was time to finally publish some of my photographs in a printable form that people could have, in the form of this, which is I was living to a tea shop, Vancouver's Chinatown, from 2013 to 2015, and it's really cool to actually see it in print. Let me just see here. So yeah, the book, as I mentioned, the project was only supposed to go 1 year, and it's gone now 7 or 8 years, 7 years, and it's been amazing to be able to kind of see all the progress and the changes and all the stuff that has happened, and to experience all of the things in Chinatown. There's many stories of stuff that has happened, but what I can do now is actually go through some of the really cool, some of the stuff I find interesting about the book, some of the photos, and maybe just point that out to you. If you guys have any questions, feel free to, I guess, I don't know if there's a little icon which allows us to say something. Oops, my screen disappeared. That's okay. I'll keep going. Bruno, if anyone asks any questions, you can feel free to tap me out. Okay. So this is the book. I'm not going to do a whole story time. There's a lot of photographs in this book. But even when you go to like the first intro photo, you can see this photo here is of a mural that I think that is, oh, I don't want to get it wrong, Gore and Kiefer, I want to say. And there's a mural, there used to be a mural there, and it actually still exists, but now there's a building there. And it's kind of interesting to see that, this was not that long ago. This was just, a couple of years ago. And it's amazing to see that, if you go to Chinatown today, you can't see it anymore because of the buildings. There is an interesting story I have about the Jiang Association building. I think that's the Jiang Association building, where I was actually, as I was taking this photo here, if you guys can see this, we'll get it a bit closer. There you go. Yeah, there we go. And I was walking around this area when I heard some Chinese opera music being sung coming out of the windows, and I stopped for a sec just to kind of like listen and hear. So the music would start, and then all of a sudden they would stop. A lady would speak, I believe, in Cantonese, and then they would start again. So you know how they talk about this, sometimes there's pictures you can hear. For me, this is one that brings back a very audible memory for my stuff. Um, it's really interesting to see. Can you guys see that? There we go. It was really interesting to see that this building here, it's no longer there. When I took this photo in 2013, you can see it was already starting to be starting to be in the process of being, I think, a renovation or demolishing. And yeah, I came back the year after, and they had started to build this commercial / retail and apartment building as well. So it was really interesting to see that change happening already from the beginning. That this was, this whole plaza was gone, and then eventually replaced with something that you can still see there. I think they actually built a Starbucks on one of the corners where this was. Managed to explore some of the, let me see, oh, focus, there we go. Some of the herbal shops, which is really cool. I love the smells and the sights of the herbal shops. A lot of it's very foreign to me. It's really cool to be able to explore and to see. It's really cool to also, like, during the time, explore Some of the, if you can see that, the meat shops I think are really cool. They just have this, it's really cool to kind of look through the glass and be able to see just the visualizations of all the meat and the seafood as well. And I think this is, I'm not going to quote, I think this one over here is Money Barbecue, and that's the seafood place just next to it. This is pictures of the tea shop that I was lured into, hence the title. And let's see if I can focus that. There we go. So it kind of became my hub as a part of the project. So every now and then I would do a walkabout while I was in Chinatown, and it was really interesting to see that the to see Chinatown, but I also needed a place to kind of to rest and just to take it easy. And it was really cool that I'd made friends with the tea shop owner, and eventually found this to be a place to hang out and talk with the tea shop owner and just talk about Chinatown. I remember one of the things she said was that as an owner in Chinatown, a shop owner in Chinatown, she was saying that Chinatown was changing so rapidly. And this was 2013, and for me, coming from, from the Tri-Cities, I didn't know much about Chinatown, but it's really interesting to hear from someone who had, opened up a shop there and was saying that, things are already changing. You know, my memories of Chinatown were very very sporadic, and I didn't have too many, so I didn't have much to draw on. But it was really interesting to hear that over the course of the years of the Chinatown project, I actually found that there was even more change that was happening, and that's documented even further in the book. So I'll just keep skipping along. um, I'm gonna focus, you guys can see. Oops, that's right about there. James T and Arts. I think it was my introduction to Chinese tea, which was really awesome. Uh, just going to quickly point. This was taken during the summer market. It's a summer Chinatown market that they had for a couple of years. I don't think they've run it recently. Um, yeah, and there was a whole bunch of wares that you could buy at the time. I'm just going further. I do a couple of kind of full panel shots to kind of encapsulate kind of a larger surface. You kind of have to pull the book back a little bit to be able to see it all. The Mr. Coffee just down here is no longer there, I don't think. And I took this picture because I passed by this building, and as an outsider, I always thought the buildings to be almost like unoccupied. But then I saw that this gentleman stepped out, and I was like, oh, there's people living in there. And it wasn't until about 2016, after I had completed the photos for this book, that I found out more about the people who lived in there. But that's, for another story. Passing ahead. Part of the book then also starts to go into the next section, in which we start talking about the after year. So this is when 2014 starts to have, after 2013, after the first year, we go into 2014 and 2015, which encompasses more of the changes and all more of the stuff that's happening. For example, if I can show it to you guys there. There we go. That was the tea shop. It wasn't green when I first got to know it. But now it's the tourist trinket shop, and it's really interesting to see that that place that was my kind of like my Chinatown / home place had already changed by the end of 1 year. Going forward, and I tried to capture as much as I could about the daily life of Chinatown. That meant capturing just the mini moments and stuff like that about it. And then just about like daily life that happens in Chinatown, kind of the unseen moments that we take for granted. And this is one of those moments where I was just in the middle of an intersection and took the photo, just encompassing, there is a life in Chinatown, but it's changing. I will highlight this one, which is a Chinese arts craft. So this Chinese arts craft place actually They had to close up shop this year, especially during COVID times. I think business is really hard. This was a second go-to place for me. I met got to know my friend Jessica, who's right here, holding the kanji in the bowl, and she had some really cool trinkets and stuff too, which would I go in and purchase. Um, and it was just a really neat place. But it's sad to see, these kind of businesses, even though they've held out for so many years, have eventually started to have to go away. Uh, I got to know people. There's a gentleman in Newtown Bakery whom I sometimes see from time to time. Um, the name escapes me. I'm actually terrible at names, but it was interesting to be able to capture this image. I remember showing him the image before, and he was really happy to see it. And we got to, even though we have a bit of a language barrier, it was really interesting to be able to talk to him about it. There's Fu Ho Ho is just down there. And there's so many different parts of the book that I would love to show, but it would take forever. But definitely show that there's okay, there is one part I do want to talk about, which is um, Daisy Garden burned down, I think probably 2015, and my understanding was that was a very kind of like how Goldstone is closing down. This place actually it was very sad for a lot of people when they heard that it was gone. So Daisy Garden had actually closed down. I believe the place is now being rebuilt, but at the time it was a fire had happened and the place had gone, and it hasn't been fully rebuilt. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of takes its place. Always do, even though I shoot a lot of black and white, I do love the colors of Chinatown as well. Let me just focus that. There we go. Even something as simple as like a fruit stall. I just love like the ambiance and the colors, and they have some pretty good fruits as well. And again, the meat shops are just really really cool, and I love to present them in a book form and photography. Um, of course, I like to end with the koi of Sun Yat-Sen Gardens. Let me just focus that. Um, and it's really cool to be able to capture the koi. I know there was for a while there was that otter who got loose and started to eat some of them. So hopefully they're still alive. Bruno, I have to update us on that. And that's the book. The whole just focus here. The whole idea is that the whole theme of this book that kind of came about was that I realized that Chinatown was changing at the time. And this kind of acts as almost like a time capsule of just a certain period of time when Chinatown was going through some really rapid, what to me it was very rapid evolution. And it was interesting to see that as I documented the same places over time to see these changes happen. And at the same time, there was also a lot of places that had remained the same. And it was cool to see that as well. Let me just see here. Yeah, so it's been really cool to see the interest in the book. It goes to show that there's a lot of interest in Chinatown. Either people miss it or are surprised to see the amount of change that has happened over the years. I'm really glad people take a look at this, and as I mentioned, it does serve as a time capsule, but I really hope it also serves as an inspiration for the preservation of the tangible and intangible heritage of Chinatown's community and culture. And I hope that that's something that would inspire people to do more. Now I lost my window here. There we go. We're still good, Bruno?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
We already have a few questions, Jonathan.
Wow.
So if you wanna, are we okay to start with the questions?
Yeah, let's do it. I was going to talk about where to get the book, but that will show in a little bit. That might be one of the questions.
Well, actually, it was one of the questions, so we might start there. Actually, where can one find the book?
Cool. Let me get my notes. There are two main options to get the book. The first is located on my main book site. So first off, you go to www.jonathandesmond.com. Again, that's www.jonathandesmond.com, JONATHANDESMOND.com. If you go to projects and then go to I Was Lured Into a Tea Shop page, there will be a link to buy. And that's the best method if you want to get it shipped directly. Actually, can I share my screen?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, let me just get it up here. Hopefully I can share the right things. Apologies if I'm getting out of focus now. Share screen. Here we go. Okay, can you guys see the
Yep,
Jonathan Desmond site? Okay,
perfect.
so there's already like a link up here you can go to, and it says buy the book. So if you click on that, it'll actually take you directly to where you want to buy it, if you want to. If you want to read more project, you go into projects. I was lured into a tea shop. Part two, I'm not really sure what to call this book. That will be changed. That will not be the final title of part two. If you go into part one, I was lured into a tea shop. You can see pictures of the book. And you can go into that link again, buy the book, and you can see where it's featured. It was Fairchild, Omni TV, Stir Magazine, and there was also an article in Tri-City News. One thing not mentioned there is also the documentary photographer podcast based in Ireland picked it up as well. Just some brief stories if you're kind of curious about the book. Oh, there it is. That's the original book. Spoilers. And I'll just stop that share for now.
Thank
The
you.
alternative, actually, I'll reshare my screen if that's okay. So I'll do that one more time once I get it up. There is an alternative. Here we go. So there is a place that I'm working with called Chinatown Wonders. And they're a place that works with creatives and artists that create some amazing art pieces and stuff and crafts for Chinatown. So if you're looking for like really cool gifts, I think I saw some interesting T-shirts, some books, my books on there. You can go there. The cool thing is that they do have this pickup option. And that's located in Chinatown. So if you don't want to get it shipped, if you want to, either pick up a whole bunch of gifts from this site and get it all picked up and pick it up all at one location in Chinatown, you can do that. Save yourself some shipping, essentially, and possibly bulk ship, I guess, if you go in and buy a whole bunch of stuff as well, or bulk pickup. So some people I know want to buy locally. That would be the way to go. If you want to just pick it up locally, have some time, maybe grab some buns from Newtown Bakery and get the book while you're at it. And yeah, that's that.
Thank you very much. So next question, Jonathan,
Hmm.
is how has the book been received so far?
Quite well, actually. Received as in like has it outsold Harry Potter? Possibly. No, I'm just kidding. So to me, it's been a bit of a surprise that it actually, I think in general, when people look at the book and are very excited about it, I think because I see the pictures and it's such a part of me that I don't even think too much about it. But to see people really excited about it and take a look at these pictures like, oh, I remember, Mr. Coffee was there, or like this Perks coffee place that had bicycles before and that's no longer there. And yeah, it's been well received pretty much. And as I mentioned, it was shown on Fairchild TV, which did a news video article, and they interviewed me with regards to the project. I had to speak in Chinese, speak in English, of course, because I think my Chinese would have probably confused a lot of people. And it was also featured on Omni TV and Fairchild TV, as I mentioned, and Stir Magazine. So there's been a lot of interest in the book, and that surprised me because I think but at the same time, I think it really shows that there's a lot of interest in the history of Chinatown, even the most recent history, because I think a lot of people, we don't know much about Chinatown, and so this is kind of a way for people to see it, see what's happened over the last few years, and then kind of compare it with today, maybe.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mhm.
Next question from Stephanie. So Stephanie is asking, what interests you the most, taking black and white photos or colored photos? Because I've
Ooh,
seen that you mostly use black and white.
yeah. Um, so I generally like to approach. Over the years, it's changed. I think when I initially approached, I really liked black and white, not because of the absence of color, but because it showed a specific tone set that I want to use. Um, so the way I do it is that when I see that there's an image, so usually what I'll do is I'll usually carry a camera that has one with color film and another one with black and white film. And then what I'll do is that if there's a scene that seems like it's more color, like Kitty's Beauty Studio, for example, has a very bright pink. I'll generally use color for that, but sometimes I also use black and white because there'll be certain shapes and lines and geometries, and the contrast of the dark with the white to create a certain scene. So, for example, actually, let me pull it out in the book here if I can find it. There's a lot of pictures in this book. Ah, here we go. Okay. So for example, there we go. So these ones were in black and white, and I chose them that way because you can see that if they're in color, you start to see that like the yellows and the reds and stuff like that. But this kind of points you more towards the shadow content, the reflections, and just all. It just kind of draws a certain different feel to the photos. Um, so to answer your question, I think I am generally more drawn to black and white photography, just because I think it tends to be more along the lines of my normal aesthetic. But I also do bring in color because I think it is very powerful, and and in the right sense, it can be used. So, for example, the meat shops, I like to bring in the glistening, the colors of the barbecue duck has a very dark brown with like a glossy sheen, and that's usually best represented. If you want to bring that out, it's best represented in the color. But generally I prefer to do the black and white because of the, like I mentioned, geometry, the brightness, contrast, and it creates a certain kind of mood.
Okay, thank you. So for the next question, Jonathan, I believe your website kind of has something on as an answer to that, but
Okay.
we see a near future, in a near future, volume 2 of this book?
I hope so. I just need more time and maybe some more funds to be able to do it. I have been working on doing some of the edits on the book, on the photos, so I already do have a pre-selection of them. But yeah, there is plans for a future book, and this is to represent kind of the second part of my journey so far. And the second part encompasses when literally I bumped into Youth Collaborative for Chinatown, and that's when I started to see some of the protests that were happening, but also eventually that led me into my journey to the Wong Association, to which I started to see some of the internal workings of Chinatown, the internal community. So a lot of what 2013 and 2015 allowed me to see Chinatown from the eyes of an outsider, someone who didn't know much about the community, someone who's a stranger to, frankly, I was a stranger to everybody until I got to know people. And that gave me a certain perspective and a certain way to look at things and a certain way to photograph things in a restricted way. So I focused on different aspects, and that's what's represented in this book here. But the book 2, I think, as I mentioned, will represent a slightly different part where you start to see more of the Wong Association, the inside life within the association, and I think it's to answer, that there is a life in Chinatown. So, book 1 is talking about Chinatown is changing, and a lot of people that I've talked to from the Strathcona area who used to live there are very sad as a result. But book 2, I'm hoping, will focus on the life in Chinatown, which is to talk about that there is more than what we see from the streets in Chinatown, and that there exists a community there and a tangible and intangible heritage as well.
So thank you.
Mhm.
Next question, Jonathan,
Mhm.
from Lorraine. Lorraine is asking, what are the biggest changes you've witnessed over the years documenting in Chinatown?
Hmm. That's a good question. So when I first started documenting Chinatown, there was already a lot of changes happening. As I mentioned, when I was really, really young, I don't remember too much of what Chinatown was like before. Um, Definitely, there's been a lot of changes in the businesses that have been there. The tea shop that I was lured into is no longer. It was already gone by the time that 2014 rolled around, and the Chinese arts place that I mentioned, the red building, it's now gone because of COVID and stuff like that. So definitely, I've seen a lot of changes with regards to the businesses that have been there. I know there's, I think is it the Rhino Noodle place? I think has changed hands a couple of times. It's the Tim Hortons in the building across for where, or on the same street as where, Hans used to be. Hans is now also gone from that location. So there's been a lot of changes with regards to the business. And, I could see that already happening from, 2013 to 2015. And has continued to occur, at least to my observation, up even until today.
Thank you. So for the next question, was it a very emotional time for you photographing Chinatown and going back?
Oh, do we have a time frame for that, or like, are they talking about like going back from 2013 to 2014, or is it like from now to
I I
2015?
I will wait for the feedback on that. My
Okay.
perspective would be like documenting the book
Yeah.
itself when you were doing that, but I will
Hmm.
wait for the feedback, which
Sure.
yes. So the feedback is that. So documenting while you were photographing from 2013 to 2015.
Oh, okay. For the book time. So yeah, at the end of like when I created this book, again, this is the only one in print. It'll sell on eBay for thousands and thousands of dollars. No, I'm just kidding. It is actually, I did sign it, didn't I? I did sign the book. It's worth thousands and thousands. No, I'm just kidding. It's not. But the at the end of 2013, when I had completed this book and I saw all the images, I think there was an emotional response because I saw it, and there was something about seeing those images in print and being able to review what I had done to really kind of push me forward to do more. And that's what kind of propelled me forward to do 2014 and to do 2015. Um, was there emotion maybe when I was seeing some of these changes that were happening? I think so, because as I was documenting throughout the year of 2013, I got to know certain people in certain places, um, and to see the changes, I think it made me realize that nothing was Chinatown. It was really hard to kind of keep in mind that things were going to stay the same because they weren't. Every time I go back, I feel like there's another new store that's opening up in an old shop that had been there that's now long gone. um, yeah, there was definitely some emotion in going back and documenting it, and actually to create this book. Even after it was done, after 2015, we went back. I went back with a friend of mine who spoke Cantonese, and we went back to present some of the photos and ask for permission for a lot of these photos that we use in the book. And yeah, it was really interesting to see that, to see some of the people again and try to explain to them, okay, this is what I'm doing. Some of them were a little confused, but I think once they saw the book, it was okay. But there was a few pictures that I wasn't able to use because when we went to go find them at the same marketplace, they're like, these people aren't here anymore. I think it was a picture of a lady who used to sell newspapers. And every now and then I drop by and I saw her in 2013 and I think 2014 as well. So the picture in here is from this book shows her in 2013, and I can't refer to her now. It'd take me a while. Um, but then when I came back years later, I would cross that same area where she would sell newspaper and she was gone, and I soon found out that she had moved. um, so yeah, it was really interesting to kind of like see people migrate, or just these people that I had taken photos of. mm, I don't know where they are. And yeah, that's I'll do there.
Thank you very much.
Mhm.
So for the next question, John is asking, how many photos in total did you have to select from for the book to be finished?
For this book, I think I took a lot of photos. I think I kind of did some edit stages. So it's kind of like filtering down into like a cone almost. So I would start with like all of the images, select from those to do a kind of like a subset. And from that subset, we put the photos into the book. So that's, I would say, like the kind of like the last subset before I was selecting stuff into the book was about 300 photos or so. And this encompassed, oh wait, hold on a sec. Might be more. 300 might be just 2013 actually. um, I'll say 300 just as a round number. And I think I picked up more from the 2014 and 2015 time.
Okay, thank you. So for the next question, regarding photography as a full-time job, what advice would you give to someone to switch or change their passion for photography into a full-time profession?
Well, here's the thing. I actually have another full-time job that I do as well. But I also do photography a lot, enough so that it's almost like a second full-time job. That's a good question because it's been really hard to navigate, especially when you do in-person events and stuff like that. My general recommendation and advice is probably to diversify. So I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of fellow career photographers. And for myself and a few others, we focused a lot on documentary. We found that even though we're very passionate about documentary, sometimes it doesn't necessarily have as much of a market share as we would like it to have. So then that's an opportunity to diversify, to do maybe like, I don't know, do something that's like more corporate commercial photography work, or maybe to consider something on the side that'll help pay the bills. I know that there's, when I do studies of some of the my old classical photography heroes, I think when I start to read into some of their bios, I realize that that a lot of them maybe had newspaper jobs on top of what they were doing as well. And I can't quote names because it escapes me. I follow a lot of Magnum photographers who are a lot of very very hardcore documentary photographers, and I think a lot of them either had news jobs doing work for newspapers or other stuff on top to kind of like supplement doing their project work. And so for me, that's kind of my process, is just the full-time job is not necessarily photography related, but it's there. So my recommendation, especially now with COVID and stuff, is to diversify and to keep your passion with the photography that you're doing, and that's that's something I'm doing. Hence why I've released this book. But also to find other potential paths, either within photography or otherwise, to help support you in that.
Thank you. So for the next question, what do you prefer, photographing people / subjects or buildings?
Sorry, the last part was?
Buildings, architecture.
Oh, okay. My focus is definitely on people. I know I focus a lot on the buildings here because I think they were of interest, and I think they were, me being a shy person, especially not knowing anyone and not being able to speak the language, I tended to not focus as many people. But generally, when I get the chance, I would like to focus people because I feel like the people's lives kind of tell the story for me. And if I do document the building, it's to kind of give context to the way that people are living and the way that people exist in a space. And it's kind of, and I think I have a couple pictures of like, entryways and doors to kind of give context to like, oh, this is a place that, I couldn't go into, but someone was here because I could hear them up the stairs. Actually, let me see if I can find some photos of some buildings. Yeah, most of the pictures of the buildings that I have in here usually have people in it. So for example, this picture of TNT Market, let me just see, is that focused? I think that's right about focused or so. So the building kind of gives the person context. So the focus is generally on the person, but I include the building in order to give it context. There was times when I would document just the building, just because I thought it was interesting, but generally my focus is on people, because I think that's it's important to tell the stories of people's lives. Yeah.
Thank you. So we have here one more question. I ask everyone who actually, if he or she has a question, just pose the question. I will ask it to Jonathan as well. So the next question is, do you always show the photo you've taken of a subject to the person who was photographed, or usually you tend to take a photo and just capture the moment?
I would say the latter. So I think what they're asking is, do I take the photo and then show them right after? Or do I take the photo and then run away? Well, don't run away necessarily. Sometimes I do. Um, but generally I focus on getting the moment, because I try not to, I don't want to manufacture the moment. I want it to show that, when I'm doing a photograph, this is a real moment in time. This is exactly what happened. Jonathan Desmond didn't go and tell the person to smile or go look at the meat, more furiously in the glass case. It was, more like, this is Chinatown for what it really is. And I'm just there to, okay, I'm not going to use the term fly in the wall because I know people use that, and I don't like that term because I don't like being considered a fly, but I guess a ninja is the best way to put it. Um, I like to be able to just document life for what it is so that it's an authentic moment without any intervention. In some case, because I'm using film, usually I can't show them anyway. But there have been some cases where, for example, the Chinatown parades, which I got involved in from 2016 onwards, I actually would take photos in the previous year and they would come back with prints to try to give to these people. And it's hard to, I mean, there's hundreds of people in the parade, but I remember there was, I think, one troop of ladies with like red vans who I managed to find again. And they were just like, I gave them a 4x6 and they started screaming and it was amazing. But at the moment I took their photo, I didn't tell them pose, I didn't tell them to do anything. I was like, I want to be in there, capture the moments as silently as possible. Um, and, hopefully I'll find them again.
Okay, so we do have one more question.
Nice.
When as a photographer, when you do travel, do you always carry the camera with you, or sometimes would you rather just not carry a camera at all?
Hmm. Well, nowadays when I go to do like my COVID-19 grocery pickups, I don't carry a camera with me just because I'll have my cell phone with me. I used to carry my camera around a lot, with everywhere with me, but then I found it was just kind of, first it was hurting my shoulders and making me physical ouchie, I guess is the best way to put it. Um, and I think what's helped me has actually been in focusing on what I want to photograph. So if I know I'm just going to go to, go quickly to pick up the groceries, I don't think I'm going to take photos of, the parking lot or the streets or anything like that. Then generally I just take my cell phone with me because usually I'm stuck in my car anyways. Um, but the other side of that is, yes, generally I also do take a camera when I feel like it. Again, when it's not one of those like quick things where, I don't want to, where, if I know I'm going to carry like 20-30 pounds of groceries, I probably won't have time to, take a photo of my camera. But if it's something where I'm will have my free hands, then I generally will. So the general answer is, most of the times, yes, I do carry, um, at the very least, maybe a very light camera like this one.
Okay, thank you very much.
Hmm.
So next question from Joyce. Joyce is asking, are you doing a special COVID edition of your documentary project?
COVID-19. Ooh, interesting. Um, that's a good question. What kind of a COVID-19 project? Like documenting Chinatown in the time of COVID-19? Is that what the question is? I think she's probably asking.
Yes, yes.
Yes. Oh, okay. Um, I'm not entirely sure. I'll have to see what photos I've taken. Because of the lockdown, I haven't really gone out to Chinatown as much as before. Generally, just to stay at home and, excuse me, pick up groceries from Save On. But yeah, if I have photos of it during COVID-19, I would definitely love to make a special project of sorts to show what it looked like during the lockdown. Um, Definitely, I have been there actually a few times, and it's changed with regards to like. Um, the feel, I guess, is quite different now because there's less people, but there's more people. I don't know how to describe it other than that it's quiet in the sense that it doesn't seem like there's a lot of business and activity. But I think that's kind of true for a lot of places other than Chinatown as well. So if I do go there, I will definitely try to capture some of that. But for a lot of from what I've seen, it's also business as usual. So people need their groceries and stuff, so they've been going there.
Okay, well, thank you very much. So
Mm,
far, we have no further questions. I will just start saying my goodbyes, but if there's a last minute question, I will be happy to take it and ask Jonathan.
mhm,
So once again, was an honor for us to host this virtual book lunch. Thank you again, Jonathan,
mhm.
for accepting our invitation. Thank you all very much for joining us today.
Yep,
And hopefully go and buy Jonathan's book. I've seen it. It's
yep.
quite impressive, quite beautiful. And hopefully we'll see you all soon and stay safe and healthy and positive.
Yeah, and a huge thanks to you guys, Bruno, you and the folks at Yat-Sen for supporting my project. Now you guys have supported me throughout from the last few years, and it's been huge. So we just want to say a huge shout out to you guys. Thank you for your support.
Thank you very much. See you all next time and have a wonderful week, everyone. Thank you.
Right. Take care, everyone. Stay
Take
safe.
care, everyone. Thank you very much.